Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we've got a really specific mission, and honestly, a pretty fascinating one. We're taking a deep dive into this innovative educational tool that's been developed right inside the military. It's specifically for ethical and spiritual growth. We're looking at how a military community is using a really old method, the staff ride, to, forge the moral core of today's warfighter.
That's exactly right. And to really get the innovation, we have to start with the basics. What is a staff ride? It's this foundational educational tool in the military. Its roots go way back centuries, actually, and it was originally all about tactics and strategy.
Yeah, deep roots. We're talking Frederick the Great of Prussia out there analyzing the terrain with his officers. And later you have Karl von Clausewitz, right? Formalizing the study of past battles and on war. All about making better strategic decisions.
Precisely. And then the methodology, the actual how-to, that got really solidified under Helmuth von Moltke the Elder. He set up that three-phase structure we still see. First, the preliminary study, then the field study, actually going to the ground, and finally integration, making sense of it all.
And that's standard practice, right? PME across the Army, Marines, Navy. You learn what happened, where it happened, and crucially, what you should have learned.
Yep, that's the traditional model.
But the sources we're looking at today show this really unique twist. We're focusing on what they call spiritual fitness staff rides. It's an adaptation developed by Catholic men at Langley Air Force Base, working with the Catholic military apostolate. So unlike those traditional rides focused purely on, say, troop movements or terrain.
Right. These ones deliberately weave in ethical warfare principles. They bring in just war doctrine side by side with the military's own core values.
So it's a fundamental shift in focus.
It really is. They're applying that same military rigor, that same structured analysis, but they're applying it to questions of conscience. They take core principles, necessity, proportionality, distinction, humanity, the stuff that guides joint operations, and they examine historical moments where those principles were really put to the test.
The goal being moral clarity under pressure.
Exactly. Moral clarity.
Okay, so for our deep dive, we're using one of their specific case studies, Bacon's Rebellion, 1676. And this event, it's like a sharp, maybe even painful lens for looking at leadership, that whole tension between authority and conscience.
And importantly, what happens when you fail to apply restorative justice after the conflict, the long-term fallout.
All right, let's set the scene then. Virginia, 1676.
Okay, so picture this. England's most prosperous colony on paper, but underneath, deep divisions. You've got wealth and authority secure along the coast with the big planters. But out on the frontier, small farmers are getting hammered, heavy taxes, constant danger from Native American attacks.
So it's like two different worlds. Orderly from the capital, Jamestown, but feeling totally ignored, totally deaf. Out on the frontier, a real pressure cooker.
Definitely a pressure cooker. And the man in charge is Sir William Berkeley. Been governor for over 30 years. Confident, yes. Loyal to the crown, absolutely. But he seems to have lost touch with the sheer desperation of those frontier settlers.
And when they pleaded for help against the attacks?
Berkeley ordered them to stand down. Just stand down. He was worried about sparking a bigger war, maybe disrupting his profitable trade deals with some tribes.
Okay, so right there, that's the flashpoint. Authority fails to protect.
And that's when Nathaniel Bacon steps in. He's young, educated, actually from a wealthy background himself, but he's new to the colony. He sees Berkeley's failure, sees the suffering, and he basically chooses his conscience over the governor's orders.
He leads his own expedition. Unauthorized.
Completely unauthorized. Heads west to strike back, and this thing just ignites.
People rally to him.
Hundreds did. Small farmers, indentured servants, even some slaves. They saw Bacon as the one actually defending them, even as Berkeley officially labels him a rebel.
Wow. And it led to a direct confrontation.
Oh, yeah. A real showdown. Bacon marches on Jamestown. Picture this. The 70-year-old governor, Berkeley, absolutely furious, facing down Bacon's armed followers. He dramatically rips open his coat, bares his chest, and shouts, "Here, shoot me before God, fair mark." Just incredible political theater.
Did it work? Did Bacon back down?
Temporarily. Berkeley even offered Bacon a commission, trying to co-opt him, but the truce was fragile. It didn't last.
And then Bacon really doubled down.
He issued the Declaration in the name of the people of Virginia. Think about that title. It's basically the first document on American soil arguing for armed resistance against colonial authority. Conflict becomes a full-blown civil war. And in September 1676, Bacon's forces burned Jamestown to the ground, their own capital city.
The first English city in America destroyed by its own people. Just staggering.
It is. But then, Almost anticlimactically, the rebellion itself just kind of dissolves. Bacon dies suddenly in October. Dysentery, the bloody flux.
So the fighting stops, but the story's not over.
Not even close. Governor Berkeley returns, humiliated, vengeful. And this is where, for the staff rights purpose, the ethical analysis really kicks in.
Right, the conflict's over, but now comes the reckoning. How does Berkeley handle the aftermath?
Brutally. He's determined to enforce loyalty. To make an example, he orders a wave of public executions. 23 men hanged: planters, merchants, soldiers who had sided with Bacon.
23.
23. And yes, his actions restored quiet, but it was the quiet of fear, not peace. He used the law, sure, but as a hammer for vengeance.
So history sees this as a failure, even though he technically won.
A profound moral failure. He enforced the letter of the law, maybe, but he completely shattered the spirit of the community, the trust. He lost his legitimacy. He might have restored order, but at the cost of justice.
And this wasn't just a local issue. I mean, his actions actually reached the ears of the king, did they?
They absolutely did. And King Charles II was apparently appalled. Berkeley had ignored direct orders from the crown, urging moderation and restraint in dealing with the rebels.
And the king's reaction?
It's quite famous. He reportedly said, "That old fool has hanged more men in that naked country than I did for the murder of my father."
Wow. Coming from a king who dealt with regicide and civil war, that's saying something.
It really underscores the excessiveness. The king himself saw Berkeley's actions as disproportionate vengeance, not legitimate justice.
That quote just perfectly highlights the gap, doesn't it, between having legal power and having moral authority. Which brings us straight to this concept the spiritual fitness staff rights emphasize. Just postbellum. Justice after war.
Exactly. It's a critical part of the just war tradition. It asks, once the fighting stops, how do you ethically restore order? How do you build a lasting peace? And Berkeley basically provides a masterclass in how not to do it. He violated the core principles.
Okay, so let's break those down. The staff right materials focus on 3 key principles he ignored.
Right. First, proportionality. The punishment has to fit the crime, fit the harm done. 23 executions. That seems driven more by Berkeley's personal humiliation than any objective measure of justice needed to restore the colony.
Okay, proportionality. What's second?
Second is restoration. A legitimate authority has a duty to actively rebuild what the conflict damaged physically, socially, economically. Berkeley.
Yeah.
He focused entirely on punishment. He didn't address the root causes of the rebellion, those heavy taxes, the lack of frontier security. He didn't try to heal the divisions.
Which leads to the third principle, I imagine.
Reconciliation. This is maybe the toughest one. There has to be some path back, some room for forgiveness, a way for the community to heal and eventually trust the authority again. Berkeley offered none of that. It was pure retribution. He achieved order through terror, which, fundamentally undermines legitimate leadership, makes you a tyrant.
So the core tension these staff rights explore is laid bare right here.
Exactly. Authority without conscience slides into tyranny. But conscience without authority, like Bacon's initial actions perhaps, can lead to chaos. True leadership has to somehow unite them. Berkeley's story is the cautionary tale. Winning the battle, but losing the peace through vengeance. That's just setting yourself up for future failure. That silence he bought with fear, it just festered.
Yeah, you can almost draw a line from that fear and resentment to the attitudes 100 years later during the revolution.
No doubt. It created a memory of unchecked power.
And what's powerful about this analysis is realizing this isn't just about history or governors or rebellions. The sources really stress this point.
That the same moral geometry, as they put it, applies everywhere. On the battlefield, yes, but also in the squadron, in the office, even in the living room.
Every time you make a command decision, discipline someone, even make a parenting choice, you're navigating that same tension. Justice versus mercy. How do you uphold a standard while preserving the relationship, the trust?
And to make that really concrete, the staff ride material uses a fictional case study. A modern scenario involving a commander, Major Daniel Reeve.
Okay, tell us about Major Reeve. What was his situation?
He's facing a serious maintenance breach. An airman, let's call him Airman Keller, falsified some critical inspection data, led to a mission abort. Serious stuff. Needs decisive action.
So what was Reeve's first move?
His initial instinct, backed by JID recommendation actually, was to come down hard, make an example, public reprimand, relieve Keller of duty right there on the spot. Show strength, enforce the regs.
Seems like standard procedure in some ways. What was the outcome?
Well, on the surface, compliance. People towed the line. But the climate in the squadron, it changed. The source calls it a brittle quiet. People stopped bringing up small issues. Communication dried up. It became about covering yourself, not about mission integrity. Fear took over.
Ah, there it is again, that echo of Berkeley. Silence, but not trust. Legitimacy lost.
Exactly. The turning point for this fictional Major Reeve comes from his chief, Chief Darnell.
What wisdom did the chief offer?
The chief basically called him out respectfully, said something like, "Sir, fear keeps mouth shut, sure, but compliance shallow. Loyalty, you earn that with fairness. You keep it with mercy." He stressed that the purpose of discipline shouldn't be just to ruin the airmen who messed up. It has to be about rebuilding. Rebuilding the individual, rebuilding the trust, rebuilding the integrity of the whole team. Justice done right heals.
Justice heals. That's a powerful reframe. And this realization hit Reeve on a personal level too, right?
It really did. He had this light bulb moment where he saw his command style, this sort of harsh, top-down approach, was mirroring how he was failing at home with his teenage son, Luke. Laying down the law without listening first, without understanding why his son was acting out. The result was the same. Authority declared, relationship fractured.
Oof. That hits close to home for a lot of people, I bet.
He realized the same virtues that stop a unit from becoming resentful or, mutinous listening, patience, making the correction fit the mistake. Those are the exact same things needed at home.
So did he get a chance to apply this lesson?
He did. Shortly after, another issue came up. Less severe, a different airman made a mistake related to process, not deliberate falsification. This time, Reeve paused. He chose restraint. Instead of a public shaming, he focused on retraining, reinforcing the correct procedures, working with the airmen.
And the outcome.
He realized, as the source puts it, that mercy's strength under control. Justice wasn't this hammer to smash things with. It was more like a steady hand, offering support to rebuild. And that act of restraint, it actually rebuilt trust across the unit way more effectively than the public reprimand ever could.
That really brings us to the core spiritual and ethical lesson these staff rides, the Langley Initiative, are driving at, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Moving past this idea that justice and mercy are opposites.
Absolutely. Mercy isn't weakness. It's not being soft. It's actually a form of moral discipline. It's strength, but applied constructively towards restoration. And the tradition they draw on really highlights this. St. Thomas Aquinas put it perfectly. Mercy is the fullness of justice. It doesn't negate justice. It completes it by aiming for redemption, for healing, not just punishment.
Let's connect that back to Berkeley one last time. His failure to grasp this, his choice of vengeance over mercy, it had consequences way beyond 1676 Virginia.
Huge consequences. That heavy-handedness, the memory of those hangings, it created this deep-seated distrust of authority. It set a precedent. So 100 years later, when the Crown starts imposing taxes and asserting power without consultation, the colonists already had this vivid picture of what tyranny looked like, thanks in part to Berkeley.
That memory became fuel for the revolution.
It really did. And the lesson for leaders today, especially in uniform, is stark. How you handle discipline, how you treat even one member of your team, it sends ripples through the entire formation. It shapes your moral credibility for the long haul.
So the goal isn't just enforcing rules. It's about building and maintaining restorative authority.
Authority that restores order, yes, but does it through justice that's guided by mercy. Authority that actually heals because it listens before it judges. It ensures discipline rebuilds trust instead of planting seeds of fear and resentment.
It's the same kind of moral restraint, isn't it? The kind needed to end a conflict honorably on the battlefield is the same restraint needed to keep a team, a family, a community strong and healthy back home.
Well said. Legitimate power is fundamentally about trust, not just control.
Okay, so taking quite the journey here. From the historical roots of the staff ride, through the brutal lessons of Bacon's rebellion and Governor Berkeley's failure, and connecting it all to the challenges faced by a modern leader like Major Reeve.
These sources really push us to think about what defines true leadership, especially after the immediate crisis is over. The test isn't just winning, it's how you govern the silence that follows.
So as we wrap up, here's something for you, our listener, to reflect on. Think about your own leadership, whether formal or informal. Connect back to that moment with Berkeley restoring silence but losing legitimacy. Think about a time you had to enforce a rule, correct someone, exercise authority. At work, maybe in your community, maybe right at home. Ask yourself, did the outcome truly restore trust? Did it help that person or the team grow? Or did it mostly just prove you were in charge, maybe leaving behind a quiet resentment? What kind of leadership legacy are you building right now? The kind that fosters trust for the next generation, or the kind that echoes Berkeley's failure? It's a challenging question, but one worth asking.